Hi, welcome to Root Access, the show on Google Developers Live where we talk about common startup problems and issues. In today's episode we're doing something a little different. We're not picking up one particular topic, but we're answering questions that we've seen in email and YouTube comments. And I'm joined here today by Don Dodge, startup expert, working colleague with me here in Google Developers, Developer Relations. And we have some pretty good questions from the viewers, don't we, Don?
Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to the questions.
Yeah, let's see if we can get through them all. Some of these I actually wonder about myself, so this will be very interesting for me.
Hey, Martin, maybe at this point we should mention rootaccess@google.com, so if people have questions, they can send them to that email address.
Definitely, thanks for reminding me. So we have the email address rootaccess, as one word, at google.com. You can send comments on the show or questions or suggestions for other topics, and we'll read everything that comes in, and we may put together a show about the topic you suggest. Also, as you have been doing, please continue to leave comments in the YouTube comments. We read everything, and most of these questions are actually from those YouTube comments. So, 1, YouTube comments, 2, rootaccess@google.com. Rootaccess as one word. All right, thanks for reminding me. So the very first question, top priority, we have no more than 3 separate people asking us in the YouTube comments about this advisory board stuff you talked about a couple of episodes ago. Sounds really good, we should really have advisors, but how do you compensate advisors for your startup?
Typically, you compensate advisors with common stock options, just like you do employees. So in a typical startup, there would be a pool for employees, and it's typically 10 to 20% of the company is set aside for stock options for employees. You take a small percentage of that pool and apply it to advisors. Now, advisors typically get it could be 10,000 shares, and the price will be the same as the employees pay at that particular time. It could be expressed as a percentage of the company, and that could typically be as low as 0.25% up to a full 1%. And it depends on what they're going to do for you, and it depends on the stage of the company that you're at. So if you're just starting out and you need a lot of advice on how to form the company, how to get your management team, how to raise money, how to get press, if you find someone who's going to do all that, then the percentage would be closer to 1%. Whatever percentage that you agree on, advisor options typically vest in 2 years, so with no cliff. Whereas employee options typically vest over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. The cliff means that you have to stay a full 1 year before you get the options, and then after that they vest on a quarterly or monthly basis. With advisors, it's more common that the options vest over 2 years and that they start vesting immediately.
So every month they get a 24th?
Right, 1/24th.
Yep.
And an additional thing, you may have heard about acceleration or accelerated options or triggers, where if the company is acquired, the advisor options automatically accelerate or fully vest. So if you do a 2-year vesting schedule with an advisor and your company gets acquired after 8 months or 12 months or 16 months, whatever it is, the remaining months get fully vested and paid to the advisor. The reason for that is that the acquiring company is not going to want to keep you on as an advisor, and you've already given a lot of value. Most of the value that an advisor gives is front-loaded, so it's very early in the process, and it sort of tapers off as you get further out.
I see. So what should a startup founder do if you approach a person you respect and who's in the community and all of that, and that potential advisor asks for cash?
probably decline. Startups
Yeah.
don't have a lot of cash, and the cash they do have, they need to use that to hire people and do the things they need to do to build the product. So I wouldn't spend precious cash on an advisor. And if an advisor is not willing to take stock options and sort of grow with the company, then they're probably not the person you want. And they're acting more like a consultant.
Yeah.
And consultants, sure, startups hire consultants, but it's for very specific tasks that they need expertise on, and it's for a very short and defined period. That's typically not what an advisor does.
So you want the advisors to have skin in the game as well, is what you're saying?
Right, skin in the game, and to be with you for a couple of years to really help you build the business.
Very good. Great. Another thing, and the second question, I get asked this all the time when I go to hackathons, I go to college events, people who are straight out of college or have a couple of years experience, they ask, what experience do I need to start a company? Can I start one straight out of college? What other jobs should I have had before to have what it takes to start a startup?
Yeah, sure. You can start a company right out of college or even right out of high school. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook in college. Mm-hmm. Larry and Sergey started Google while they were at Stanford. Yahoo recently acquired a company from a founder who was a high school kid.
Right.
So, but those are the unicorns. Those are kind of rare. Typically, startups have founders that have graduated from college for a few years and have done a few things. I say the best preparation for doing a startup is to work in a startup. So I think after you graduate from college or high school or do whatever you do, go work for a startup. And that helps you to learn how startups work, how you have to raise money, how you have to hire people, how you get office space, how you handle all of the nitty-gritty details. It gives you access to investors and to employees who want to do startups. Typically, startups emerge out of other companies. So they either they spin out of a startup that failed or that grew and they got disinterested, or they spin out of larger companies. In larger companies, great experience for a startup there is the closer you are to the customer or product management or understanding a problem, the better off you are. So big companies are a good place to get experience, but you want to be as close to the customer and the product requirements as you can. So those are the two ways. But I would say the best preparation for starting a company is to work in a startup yourself, someone else's, and learn how it works there.
Oh, right. My first job was in consulting. I thought that was pretty nice. Every 6 months I went to a new company and saw it from within as well.
But I started the same way.
Oh, did you? Oh,
yeah.
Right.
And you're right, consulting is a good way to get a broad overview of lots of different companies and how they operate. But it tends to be a short-term kind of thing, and you don't really get deep into the issues that they're solving or the problems that they have or how the dynamics with customers work. You get an overview of it, but there's nothing like working in a startup and having it, in your face every day to really impress upon you how to handle those things.
That makes perfect sense, yeah. All right, the very first show we did back in early March was about funding and seed funding. We got some questions about that. I think we may not have been completely clear about the difference between angel investors and friends and family round. Could you dig into that a little more?
Sure. Friends and family are just what it says. It's people who will give you money to start your company because they're friends of yours, they know you, they trust you, or they're family members. So friends and family, that's the normal source for your first money. And VCs often refer to them sort of derisively as friends, family, and fools, because you have to, there's no justification really for giving you that money because you have just an idea. You know, you don't have, might not have your founding team, you don't have a product to look at, you're at the very early stages. So only someone who really knows you, friends and family, would give you the money to do that. And that's typically, depending on your friends, you know, somewhere around $100,000. If you have lots of friends or rich friends, then it can go to maybe a couple $100,000. But it's a small amount of money just to get started, to attract a co-founder and build a demo product that you can actually take to angel investors, which would be the next step. Angel investors tend to be retired tech executives or entrepreneurs themselves who have built and sold companies and have money to invest and sort of like to live vicariously through the entrepreneurs and get involved in a startup and help them grow. So they're two kind of very different things. The first money you get is friends and family, and that's probably $100,000 to $200,000. Angel investors are the next level, and that can be anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million. And they like to invest when there's at least a couple of people, so a couple co-founders, maybe an engineer, and that there's a demo that they can look at, and maybe a business plan or some kind of plan about where the company's going to go. And then once you get beyond that stage, then you're ready to go to VCs, venture capitalists, for a Series A kind of financing, and those tend to be $1 million to $3 million.
So this goes against a little the common wisdom, common knowledge that friends and money shouldn't mix those things. Family and money shouldn't borrow from family, but you have to get off the ground before you have a product.
Right, you do. And you know, family will do that for you when no one else will. And I counsel people not to take too much money from friends and family because it's very risky. It's likely that you'll lose it. So you don't want to take too much money from any one person. You're better off taking $5,000 or $10,000 from several friends and family to add up to an amount. Don't try to take too much from any individual because it's very risky.
Yeah. All right. So I also meet teams who found a startup together, and also most ideas usually start with one single person, and that single person drives it on. But I think you mentioned in a show previously we did, that you really should have a co-founder, and that was something you looked at with startups. Why do you look at that?
Well, not just me, but investors look at that. Y Combinator and Techstars and everyone tends to want to have at least two co-founders in a company. There are rare cases where a single co-founder can be the driving force and make things happen, but that's pretty rare. The reasons that you want co-founders, there are several. One is starting a company is really, really hard, and there are ups and downs to this, and when you have two people, one can be up when the other is down and sort of help each other out, or one can be really good at development and the other is really good at raising money and marketing or that kind of thing, or one of the founders is a front-end developer and the other founder is a back-end developer, so there's balance. It's pretty rare that one person can do everything, and you need co-founders that have that same shared vision and passion and willing to put everything out there that an employee might not. So for those reasons, it's pretty important to have co-founders. From an investor perspective, having a co-founder sends a signal that says someone else believes in this idea enough to quit their job and join you to build this company. So it's sort of validation that someone else thinks this is a great idea. And so the more validation you have from co-founders, from early employees or from friends and family and investors, that makes the next round of investors feel more comfortable.
I see. So many startups build on top of Google APIs to get started. You don't have to build your own payment solution. You don't have to build your own load balancer and things. If you run on App Engine, you don't have to write your. Very few startups write their own mobile operating system. They build on Android. But if you do that, you're pretty dependent on whoever the provider is. And for these examples, Google. And sometimes you just hit a block. You can't do what you thought you could do with the product. It doesn't do what you thought the documentation says, and you can be stuck. What do you do then when it comes to Google products?
Well, when it comes to Google, developer relations, there's a big group of us, over 200 of us actually, that help developers solve problems. We give them advice, we give them code samples, we solve technical problems. So if you go to developers.google.com, you can find a list of the developer advocates by product who are there to help you. You can go to Google Groups. There is a group for every Google product, discussion forum where you can ask questions and get them answered. There are discussion forums on Stack Overflow for every single Google product. You can watch Google Hangouts. There are office hours. So if you go to developers.google.com and look for Google Developers Live, you can see a schedule of shows and upcoming shows, Hangouts, and that kind of thing where you can ask questions. You can go to Google I/O. There are Google developer groups all over the country, all over the world. So there are multiple ways to get help from Google, and that's our job. That's what we do.
Yeah, I thought I saw the report recently about Google developer groups. They're now in 106 countries. I think I saw in the report. It's pretty amazing. So let's repeat that again. Developers.google.com to see all the different products there are. And then developers.google.com/live is a great place to find video about the various product teams talking about their products and questions they get from the field. And Google developer groups, I think that's developers.google.com/groups. And then you can see if there's one in your city or your country.
Right.
Yeah. Or start one if there isn't one. All right, so freemium. We get this question a lot. People throw around that term a lot, and it's something with some stuff is free and some stuff is paid for. But what does it really mean, and how do you do it well, and without infuriating and nickel and diming your users?
So freemium is a conflated word. It's a conjunction of free and premium, and we say freemium. So what it means is the service starts out free, and then you pay a premium for additional services or more features or more bandwidth or more storage or something like that. So freemium means that the users can start for free and experience the product, and when they go over a certain usage limit or when they go over maybe a 1-year free trial or something like that, then you have to pay. Typically, I've seen hundreds of businesses that have used the freemium model, and typically 3 to 5% of the free users convert to paying customers, and 95 to 97% of the customers or users are actually free users. So you need to make sure that your business model and your cost structure supports being able to support these 95% of the users that are not going to pay. And with software, you can generally do that because using things like App Engine and free infrastructure kinds of things allow you to support users without actually paying a lot of money to do that.
So that is a very good point. I should have no delusions about half the people wanting to pay from coming in. I should count on 3 to 5%, and my business has to be profitable at that lower percentage.
Right. So some people do have a misconception that half the people will pay for their
Yeah.
product. And if they will, that's great. You're going to do very well. But typically, it's 3% is a pretty good conversion, and 5% is fantastic.
I see. So quite often I meet startups, I'm sure you do as well, who say that they have this great idea, but they don't want to talk about it because it's such a great idea. They might want you to sign an NDA or not tell you about the idea at all. So should startups have NDA, the non-disclosure agreements?
Yeah, non-disclosure agreements were really an invention of big companies. Big companies who were working with multiple suppliers or consultants or contractors, where they had to try to keep things secret. But in the software world and in the startup world, non-disclosure agreements really don't have a place. For example, investors, venture capitalists, will not sign non-disclosure agreements.
Oh, why not?
For several reasons. The biggest one is that they can't remember. They talk to so many people, they couldn't possibly remember who they heard something from and who not to tell about it. So it's just too cumbersome a process. And it's too cumbersome a process, and it's too risky from a legal point of view. Once you sign one of those things, people could sue you for some comment you made, that not even knowing that it had anything to do with what they were talking about. So most people will not do it. And quite frankly, from a startup perspective, they don't help you much. Because NDAs don't prevent bad things from happening. And when bad things do happen, you still have to hire lawyers and spend a lot of money to try to defend or get compensation. So I don't think NDAs actually work. I don't sign them personally, and investors don't, and I don't see it very often. The flip side of it is, as a startup, you're actually better off talking about your idea with other people, because most people want to help you. Most people want to understand what you're doing and introduce you to other people who can help you or give you advice on how you can make it work better, or sort of broaden your horizons and thinking about things. So I think the benefit that you get from telling people your idea far outweighs any risk, downside risk, that someone might copy your idea.
I think that's a good point. Yeah. All right. We also had a question about patents. Should startups go out, if they have this great idea, which most startups think they do, should they go out and get patents for that? How much does it cost to get one?
Good question. Software patents are kind of a controversial topic. Patents in the old days were for hardware and mechanical processes and things that were manufactured, typically. In the past 4 or 5 years, software patents have become kind of prevalent, and I don't see a great deal of value in software patents unless you have something that is so novel and new that you need to protect it with a patent. It costs about $25,000.
Oh, that's significant for a startup.
Yeah, so you have to get a lawyer, and there are fees with the Patent Trade Office, and all told, it's about $25,000 to get a patent, and for complicated ones, it can be as much as $50,000.
Gosh.
And beyond that, it can take anywhere from a year to 5 years to get a patent actually issued. So it's a long process, it's very expensive, and from a startup perspective, you've either made your startup work or fail within a year or 18 months. And you wouldn't have had the patent issued anyway.
Right.
So I think larger software companies tend to build patent portfolios as a defensive mechanism, so that if someone sues them for patent infringement, they can countersue them for infringing on their patents. So there's kind of a defensive mechanism more than anything else.
Sort of mutually assured destruction going on,
Yeah.
so nobody dares to strike.
Yeah, the big companies, they use patents as defense mechanisms against other people infringing them. The reality is, if you're in software and you're doing anything that's reasonably popular, you're probably infringing on someone else's patent, and they don't care unless you start to get really, really successful and impinging on their business. And by that time, the idea is that you'll have patents that you can execute and sort of trade and say, okay, truce, I won't sue you, you won't sue me.
Okay, so patents have their place in the way our legal system is set up and all of that, but not for a startup for most of the time, you say?
Unless you're doing something really unique and really different, it probably doesn't make sense because of the expense and the time involved. But you may want to start thinking about patents and start the process for later on down the road when it could become important.
Oh, right. Yeah, time and money, those are two things startups have in short supply. Better to use it to build your product.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. A question from Tony that we got in Google+. He said that we've talked a lot about consumer-facing startups, and consumer-facing startups is, well, the ones I've been in have all been consumer-facing as well. It's easy because you are yourself a consumer, so you can sort of tell what kind of marketing would work for a consumer. You can figure out how much a product should cost because you know how much money you would pay for it. But enterprise-facing startups, that's a completely different area. What is different about enterprise-facing startups?
Almost everything.
Almost everything.
Enterprise software tends to be more expensive, more complicated. You typically have a sales force that would sell an enterprise software product. It might require integration with existing software that the enterprise has. It might require professional services to help install the software, integrate it with other things, make it work, customize it for the way the customer wants to use it. So the cost structure is different. The business model.
That sounds terrible. Why would a startup ever get into this sort of cost structure and all this stuff you have to set up?
Well, because it's very, very profitable. If you get a product that people are willing to pay for, you can sell, in the old days, you could sell one seat, one user license for $25,000, $50,000, and do that in an enterprise where they're buying hundreds of licenses. So you could have millions and millions of dollars of revenue from one customer. So it's a great business model if you have an idea that is differentiated and people are willing to pay, and it's easy to integrate, and it's easy to customize to the way that the business wants to use it. Some of the biggest software companies in the world were built on that model. In the past 8 or 10 years, we've sort of moved away from enterprise software, and most of the investment and most of the innovation has been on the consumer side, on the web. And more
we're
recently,
seeing consumer stuff sort of working its way into the enterprise, the back door.
Exactly. So we've had eight or 10 years of web-based development and more recently mobile development, largely focused on consumers, largely funded by advertising business models or freemium business models. And those things work pretty well, but the venture capitalists and the investors have discovered, whoa, we've been ignoring the enterprise for 8 to 10 years. Now there's a great opportunity to invest in that area. And you're right, what you're seeing is a lot of social or consumer type features being built into enterprise software. So making enterprise software more approachable and easy to use, better user interface, mobile access to enterprise applications, bringing social kinds of signals and social inputs into enterprise applications. So there's a huge opportunity there.
Right. And then the other thing I notice also with enterprise is that we're all kind of experts on consumers because we are consumers, but with an enterprise you want a pretty strong team who knows real estate or knows airplane leasing or whatever you're into, right?
Right. So domain experience.
That's the word I was looking
So
for.
having domain experience. Going back to that first question you asked about what do I need to start a company, and I said work at a startup. Well, if you want to start an enterprise software company, you're better off working at a big software company that's done enterprise, because that's where you get the domain experience and you know the features that matter and you know the problems and you know how your customers' businesses work. So you can identify unsolved problems, or you can identify efficiencies that you can affect with enterprise software. So for there, you need domain experience, and you need experience with those customers to understand what they do. So it's a completely different approach, not only from a business model and cost structure and implementation and professional services and all that kind of thing. Technical support is different.
Right.
So the technical support that you provide to a consumer is very different than the technical support you would supply to an enterprise customer. They expect more, and
Right.
they actually pay for.
They paid for more, yeah.
They pay for support. So it's a totally different approach, different business model, but very lucrative and somewhat neglected in the past 8 or 10 years.
Sounds like a lot to talk about there. Maybe we should do a future show on that.
Yeah, we could actually do a whole show just on enterprise software and the opportunities there, and how you structure those companies, and how you raise money, and how you attract the team. It's a big topic.
Great. All right. Thank you, Don. I think those were all the questions we had. And thank you for sending us your questions. If you have further questions, or for example, if we do an enterprise-facing startups a show about that, what should we bring up? Or what other topics would you like us to bring up on future episodes? Do either email us on rootaccess@google.com or leave comments in the YouTube comments. Thank you for watching. See you next time.